I guess I don't really like horror movies in practice, though I do think that they're interesting in theory. I like the way they explore our basic human anxieties surrounding sex and innocence and suburban life and technology, homophobia, racism. I like the way that they're sort of an extension of classic fairy tales and moral stories brought into the adult world because, hey, adults need to learn life lessons too. But I rarely find myself actually enjoying horror films. I guess I just don't like being scared. What I do like is the postmodern horror comedy. Movies like Scream or Cabin in the Woods or Chillerama, who use tropes of horror movies but in a more self-aware way. They get to examine the same sorts of human anxieties as true horror, but can actually comment more deeply on them. Maybe I'm more drawn to these kinds of horror films because of when I grew up. I was a kid when Scream came out, and I saw it even though I was probably too young. I watched a ton of Buffy growing up. The mid to late 90s were a strong time for slasher film and these kind of postmodern responses to them, and I guess that's colored my taste in horror. Boy Meets World was and maybe is my favorite TV show of all time. In the 5th season they had a Halloween episode called And Then There Was Shaun. It's a classic, I know you remember it. Jennifer Love Hewitt's there as Jennifer Love Pfefferman. There's a random character that they bring in, and then they kill just so that Eric can scream, "They killed Kenny," and then start to say, "You bastards," but gets cut off by the rest of the characters screaming. There's a creepy Crispin Glover looking janitor. There's a Scream-esque through line in which Shaun is telling the group what to do based off of his knowledge of horror films. There's scream-offs, there's laughs, but at its core, it's very much about the same anxieties exploited in other horror films. In the series, Corey and Topanga had recently broken up, and while they're not taking it great, Shaun is actually taking it very badly. It's revealed at the end of the episode that Shaun was the killer all along, and also that it was just his dream. He, as the killer in the dream and in real life, really wants Corey and Topanga to get back together and doesn't understand why they aren't. Outside of the dream, he explains to Feeney and the rest of the friends that Corey and Topanga had been together since before he knew them, and without them together, he didn't know what he could rely on anymore. Shaun famously had a tumultuous home life, and his faith in Corey and Topanga's relationship was a stabilizing force for him. With that gone, Shaun becomes overwhelmed with anxieties and doubts and fears about his own life and relationship. By putting this into the context of it being a dream, it even emphasizes how horror is an expression of our own internal fears. In this case, Shaun not knowing what the future holds and not knowing what he can trust. What's great about jumping into the horror genre for a comedy show is that they're allowed to explore these deep character feelings while still having a lot of laughs and kind of doing something different. A lot of shows will use holiday episodes as standalone pieces that don't really have much bearing on the rest of the series. And while this episode definitely defies logic and embraces a completely different tone for Boy Meets World, it's also an integral part of Shaun's character arc. The horror elements actually allow the show to more accurately express Shaun's emotions through hyperbole.